Good day to you listeners. This is Jim, the Keys Bartender, for the Home Alone edition of Keys Bartender. Yes, my wife and stepdaughter are in Poland as we speak, and that was a little touch and go. I'll get a little more in depth in that. The last time I was left home alone, I didn't leave. I'll go over the quick details of it. I don't want to bore you too much, but they left Miami here yesterday. I drove them to the airport. It's not an unusual event. I've done this before. I've been to the airport with them and left together. Saw them three other times. I came by myself to Poland. This time's a little different. We were with the Polish thing. The girls, with Abby being Polish and Sky being born of a Polish mother, that we were pretty sure Poland had restrictions. No U.S. citizens could enter Poland as of today, let's say, without good reason. Now, I'm going to come clean on some things. First of all, Abby and I are not married. I call her my wife, but we aren't married. We're engaged. We've been engaged for, how many years? 5 years. And I've been holding off because I thought it was best for healthcare for my stepdaughter, who technically is my stepdaughter if we're not married and all that stuff. But I call her, she's my daughter. Her father passed away. She doesn't have another father. She does. She does have another father. He just happens to have passed away. So I'm going to clear that up. Now, if I had decided, and now I think there's no impediment now after we talk to attorneys and accountants and stuff like that, it seems like there's no real financial benefit. It will not cause financial hardship if we just got married. Now I have to just shit and get off the pot with that thing. Okay? Now, to get on with the Polish thing. Several months ago, 3 months ago, we had decided the girls would go to Poland. Abby has to go just to visit her family. Her parents are getting up there in age. So, I'm not suggesting this could be the last time, but, when people are, the father's in his 80s and the mother's almost 80. So, there's that. And we also have property over there, or Abby has property over there that needs to be looked at. So, the confusion with going over into Europe, and I know we're not talking about the Keys. Right now we're in the midst of this storm cycle. There's a chain of clouds. It looks like I don't know what to technically call it, but if you look at the map, there's this system traveling, it looks like at least 5,000 miles from the South Pacific, a couple hundred miles wide, just storms that kind of loop up and down in a continuous line, comes up towards the tip of Florida, hits it, kind of dips around with the Gulf Stream and things like that. It's really weird. So we're going to be in a cycle of rain for a little while, and I guess that's what happens in different areas of the world with monsoon season and things like that. So the weather is fine down here. We have a decent amount of traffic. Things are opening up, so we're getting more towards our normal type of traffic this time of year, which is all right because we had a really good spring and a lot of people were under stress. And with the opening of restrictions, people taking off their mask, it seems like other pathogens or things are coming in contact. You see people getting the flu and the cold and all these other things. Though it would appear as if restaurant workers would be a little more immune to that since they were out there longer than most people. I didn't say all, most people, like cashiers and all those things, even though a lot of them are protected. So, I'm going to move off that. So if you do come down to Keys, come and visit us at the Catch Restaurant and Bar at mile marker 102, Oceanside. Open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner. And if you do come in, come and see me, or if you see someone saying you're a listener of the podcast, Keys Bartender. And also, I'd like to thank my listeners all around. We had a big uptick in listeners in Pennsylvania, Florida, a bunch of other states. We're doing pretty good right now. And especially the Russian Federation. I have to say, dziękuję to you. Thank you. I know my pronunciation may be off, but thank you. So, I'm going to pause this for right now. Let me put the music back on. I have put my dog outside. She just woke up. I'm going to go over all, not the minutia, but I'll tell you a little about what happened. Be right back. Okay, and we're back. Yeah, had to let the dog in. I'm the one, if the question was who let the dogs out, I let the dog out, and now the dog's back in. So, I'm doing this in the morning. My dog likes to sleep in late. So my girls, we get all those definitions out. I explain what our marital status is and things like that. But I'll still refer to my wife and my stepdaughter, even though when we get married. I think I'll explain this a little later about my theory that since I brought it up. You notice how when I'm talking to you, I'm trying to presuppose what your questions are when I say those things. Is he married? Is he not married? What is his status? Okay, yeah. I was married once and divorced. I am divorced. I have the paperwork. So now I'm engaged, and I've been engaged for a while. So at the time that Abby and my daughter and Abby's sister were deciding to go, there was kind of a real weird thing about getting into Europe. No one really knew what was expected of you when you come. All that we knew was if you didn't meet certain criteria as a U.S. citizen, you could not enter Poland. And then, they had this weird rules. Not weird, it's pandemic rules. So it's all new. It's all slapdash. It takes years to develop rules on immigration and things like that. And they can shut it down so quickly. It's easier to shut it down completely than to alter the rules into an orderly thing so you can explain it to people. So they had a hard time explaining. So as of several weeks ago, more than several weeks, we were under the understanding that they had to have a certain type of COVID test that had to be taken 48 hours from the time you landed in. They have this description. It's called the Schengen area, Schengen. I think it's a treaty that came about during COVID, and it's a European Union and European Union member states and non-member states in that area of the world that meet a certain criteria. If you're in there, they allowed almost free entry with tests and all that stuff. And if you're out and you meet other criteria like being essential to working in Poland, being a member of Allied Armed Forces, being a Polish citizen who has people that have a right to Polish citizenship, things like that. Now, Abby had an expired passport, but she is a Polish citizen. So does that make you not having a passport? She had a U.S. passport and an expired Polish passport. Well, what the rules are when you enter certain places, if you enter under one passport, let's say you hold two, particularly in Poland, if you enter under a Polish passport, you have to leave under a Polish passport. And you're subject to Polish laws 100%. Now, obviously, foreign citizens are subject to Polish law. But when you enter in the country in Poland, they do not consider you a U.S. citizen. They consider you a Polish citizen. And that you have to leave under that passport. So you can't, and in allied states, a lot of times, if you remember during the heyday of real bad terrorism and hijackings and all these things, some U.S. citizens that had the option of having dual citizenship held 2 passports. And it would behoove them if you were traveling abroad, let's say if you were eligible for an Irish passport, to have an Irish passport, because most people didn't have a problem in modern times with people of Irish nationality, but they had a grudge with U.S. citizens. So if you think about the Kelly Lauro and all that stuff, that was a hijacking on a cruise ship, and they killed U.S. citizens particularly. But I don't know why I diverged there. So we had this thing where we had to get a test 48 hours. Now, anybody that got COVID tests realized there's no guarantee that if you get a PCR test, you're going to get the results in 48 hours. Matter of fact, the girls ended up trying to get a test on Monday, which I didn't really understand why they were getting on Monday, because they were leaving on Thursday, and that was 72 hours. So any test results they would have gotten would have been not, couldn't be used. They wouldn't accept them because it would have shown they got the test at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday, and they expired on 2 o'clock on Wednesday, and they were going to be arriving on Friday. According to that, well, actually, it would be, with the time change, they'd be arriving, well, still around 2 a.m. Friday morning. So I won't go to particulars of that. So now, I'm still not allowed to go in. The girls get on the plane. We drive up to Miami. We do all the routines where we weigh the bags and all that stuff. So you have a multi-tier thing of going into the airport. Miami International Airport is, I've heard it by so many people, that is not the most user-friendly airport in the world. It's funny. I came from Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is the same kind of similar way. Some great airports. You got some great airports in Europe. I'll tell you, the one in Warsaw, I like that one there. I know it. And Krakow has a really nice airport. It's more compact. It's not a big city. It's not like Miami's a huge airport along the lines of like Midway Airport, or where's it? O'Hare Airport in Chicago. So Miami International is like the gateway to South America, one of the largest airports in the world. And it's a big U. And you get there, and you got the international section is on the east side. I'm just picking it from perspective, on the east side of the U, the international section. And you have all the parking in the center of the U. And we went and found a park job. I ended up parking almost a quarter mile away from the terminal, which we're all healthy, so we were able to bring the bags, even though my daughter's suitcase developed the bad wheel. We get it up. We got in there, and it looks like everyone that's traveling is packed. There's so many people in the airport, as it normally is. You see all the mandatory mask wearing in the airport. And because, especially in international airport, they're going to different places, so every place has their own restrictions going in. Some of these places have various levels of infection. So the girls are going to the airport, and they got everything set. They got their bags and all this stuff, and they're changing in the year and a half. It's almost 2 years, because last year you really couldn't travel. In the 2 years, they changed their policy on suitcases and things like that. And you have to pay for checked luggage. They're throwing another level of thing where you have to pay for checked luggage instead of carry-on for international travel. Domestic travel, you can understand that they don't incorporate, because a lot of people are going for the day or short trips, and they do carry-on, and they don't have to pay for carry-on. So we checked the bags and all that stuff. We're there at the airport. The security check-in, though, was very short, though, even though we were there in the middle of the day on Friday. Right around 1:30, 6 minutes. The line, normally it's like getting on Space Mountain in fucking Disney World. You know, with one of those all the curvy lines and stuff like that going through the waiting to go through security. It took no more than about 8 minutes for my family got in there. So there I am, saying goodbye, dropping them off, and then, you know, it's a tearful goodbye. Not tearful. I'm not crying. You know, at this time, I'm not that emotional yet at this age, right? Luckily, I'm not. I don't want to be too much. I did watch the movie World Trade Center just like last night and this morning. The end of it this morning before I did the show, and the Oliver Stone one, and it was kind of a tearjerker. I have to admit that about how they rescued the guys that were trapped underneath Tower 2 or Tower 1. I don't know which one. Oh no, actually they were in the concourse between the two. So here I driving back from the airport, waiting. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Well, right before, I guess 5 years ago, a year before I started the podcast, I was drinking. So I'm a year and a half sober now. I'm not blaming it on the drinking necessarily, but when my girls left, they left for almost the same amount of time, about 6 weeks. Maybe longer, who knows? About 6 weeks. And I dropped them off, and I was doing other things, and I wasn't working at the restaurant I'm currently. I was doing my own thing. I had my own business going. And I was working part-time at a restaurant, and I was trying to get my businesses off the ground and things like that. A lot of stress. I'm drinking. I was taking, God, what was that stuff I was taking? Some alertness stuff. It was over-the-counter stuff. But I was drinking at the time. And man, does that make you depressed. And when you're used to having your family with you and they're all gone, you got an empty house and just a dog. I was depressed and anxious and all those things. It was incredible. I never felt that way in my life for a sustained amount of time. I would stay up late at night. I just had these horrible, the way I would drink constantly. I would just have a lot of booze and all that stuff. My finances were in the shithole from drinking and, you know, and I'm trying to run my own business and a lot of it's transportation. So I was trying to gauge when I can drink because I can't go and deliver stuff. I won't go into details of what I was doing. You can't go and deliver stuff while you're drinking. So I wait till a certain time, and if I started drinking in the middle of the day, I couldn't deliver anything the rest of the day. So it was kind of killing my business. My anxiety was killing me, and I had to go back to a regular work. I needed structure, and not having the girls here, doing my own business, drinking and all that stuff. I didn't have the structure, and I didn't have the commitment or discipline to do the things I needed to do in order to have, you know, an orderly life. When I say orderly, life is messy, but it was orderly. So this time, I'm driving back, and I'm thinking it's going to be a little different because I'm sober now. And it appears to be different because I dropped the girls off. I got in the car. I had to do something with my wife's phone to make sure she had some international plan. I wanted to do that while they were in transit to get the most out of it, to make sure it was starting on the day that they arrived, so it was 1 month, and then I can redo it another month. Or I can actually increase it if I have to. So I did that. I drove home, and I'm getting on, once again, in Miami Airport. Just like any airport, there are 4 options when you're leaving the exit airport, 4 different places to go. And I wanted to get all the way to the right. and some guy just fucking cut me off. 30 minutes. 30 minutes. I had to go north and make a U-turn, get on one of these expressways and then go into Miami Beach proper, turn around, make my way back to the turnpike. I didn't think, I was kind of pissed off at the guy. He was being a little aggressive driving, but you know what? I waited too long to get over to the right lane. That was my fault. I try not to personalize things with people driving. If someone's driving fast, they're doing it to everyone, not particularly me. When they're tailgating everyone, not particularly me. Because people that tailgate just don't do it to one person. Because that's a dangerous thing to do, right? I hope you answered yes. You don't have proper stopping distance, and if you don't realize your brain, the reaction to the things you see, and the way you see and process things take a little time, and the way you send a signal to your body to do something, it's not instantaneous. So when someone slams on the brakes in front of you, you got a little lag time there. That's why you shouldn't tailgate. So the greater speed you have, the more time you should give to someone. So I always try to maintain some proper distance between me and a car in front of me. If someone's tailgating me, giving more distance in between the next car in front of me just gives me that much more time to stop. The next person, they may not stop in time, but I'm going to try to give it my best. But if I'm tailgating someone, that's when you get the chain reaction thing. I don't want to go any deeper than that. Fuck that noise. So I'm a little nervous about this stuff, so I didn't really eat that much today. I ate a couple bananas. I had some toast. So I'm thinking I'm just going to eat a big meal. I figure I'm going to just cook a steak. So I'm driving back. I have all my plans to do things. My dog, when I get home, my dog is freaking out. This little dog, Roxy. And I don't understand it. This behavior was off the hook, meaning every time I walk out the door, you start hearing her bark. She never did that before. Well, I guess she saw all the luggage go. She knows the girls are gone. Saw a bunch of luggage go out the door. She knows they're gone. And she's thinking, I'm going to leave, I guess. I don't know. I know I'm anthropomorphizing, putting human qualities in the dog by saying she was upset. But she was upset. And I can demonstrate it through one of the things that happened. So I get home, I pull out, I go shopping, get stuff that I'm going to eat the next couple days. And since the girls aren't here, you hear in my head, I can eat whatever I want, but I got to eat. And I realize I got to eat healthy. I can't just eat what I want. But I love steak. I fucking love meat to this day. It's an ethical problem for me because I love animals too, but I still love meat, right? So there's a sale on steak. I go and get steak, blah, blah, blah. I come home. I like to get it to room temperature and season it before I go and do it. I'm doing all that stuff. And I get a message, a phone call from California for my other business, my notary signing business. And they have a signing here in town for a real estate deal. And it pays good money. And they say they need it as quickly as possible. And I said, you mean like an hour? And they go, yes. And I go, wow, okay. So I accept it. It's right in town. It's not that arduous to do, but there's a lot of things I have to do, cross T's, dot I's, print out the forms, get a copy for the person that's doing the signing. You don't need to know that particulars, and then I call up the person, make sure they schedule that, make sure I have a mailing package to get to do that, get copies of identification and things like that. So I start doing it, I take care of that, and I take the thing I'm about to eat. Now, it's already, I get there around 6:30, 6:45, and I finish up at 8 o'clock, and I still haven't really eaten that day. And I'm thinking, is this something, when I get hungry, it could simulate that anxiety thing I had before. I just got to eat and do the things I have to do, like go to the gym, take care of business, not dawdle. Because I have a thing about dawdling. I'm a procrastinator. But I'm, the thing with signing, I can't with a sign I can't dawdle. It's weird. I'm a procrastinator who has time anxiety. So when I have something to do, I like to take care of it. I like to be ready for it. I like to be prepared to eliminate it. But I was never a detail-oriented person. It may sound like I'm detailed when it comes to like history or something like that, but I'm not. I'm pretty slapdash. The nice thing about being a notary is it's forcing me to be a detail-oriented person, to double-check things, to not, at this late stage of my life, it is definitely against that axiom. I am teaching an old dog a new trick, and that's me. So I got all that done. I came home and I cooked and all that stuff, and I realized I'm doing all right. I'm relaxed for the evening. I get to bed. I go to bed 10:15 because I realized my girl's maid called me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Because in the back of my head, I'm anxious. I go, because I don't know. I'm getting back to it. Now, when they're getting on the plane, they didn't ask for a COVID test for them, which is good because they all just got their results, but they would have been all expired. So from what we understand from some of the things, the airline can't really tell you what the requirements are in Poland because they're not exactly sure what their immigration, or called the Polish border guard, requires for people to enter. Well, they were able to enter and get the test in the airport they were at in Warsaw. And right now, I imagine they should be continuing on through their last leg of their journey, and to pick up their rental car. So they're in the country. I don't know what the test does. I hope it doesn't. From prior to this week, there was a 10-day required quarantine for people that aren't vaccinated coming into Poland. And 2 of the people weren't vaccinated. That's Abby's sister and my daughter, who's 14, my stepdaughter. But right now, I don't know. They're still in flight, so I'm going to get the additional information when it comes. And matter of fact, I'm waiting for a phone call right now. They should be there. I wouldn't be surprised if they're on their way. They should be on their way in the next 20 minutes. And then it's an hour flight to where they're going, and then we'll find out everything, whether they have to quarantine and things like that, because you don't know what they're requiring of you right now. And it's a big-ass fine if they catch you. It's not a traffic fine. It's a life-changing fine for people of middle-class income. Serious debt. But I know they're not gonna. I know they're not gonna screw up about this and stuff. If they're getting tested in the airport. We don't know if they get a test in the airport. It's fine, and they don't have to quarantine. Then we'll see. They just have to wear a mask or something like that. So I'm doing all this stuff at home. I'm home alone. No problem. I drank a shitload of coffee this morning, and it's not bothering me. Yeah. And the funny thing about this stuff, yesterday morning before they left for the airport, there's a news item from multiple news sources that say the European Union is opening up is allowing U.S. citizens into, especially vaccinated U.S. citizens, into Europe. Now, individual countries may have their own requirements, but I imagine it will filter down since not only is Poland a member of the European Union, it's also a member of NATO. And this change came about the same time as President Biden was returning from Europe. And I think he strongly urged our allies we were going to treat, and we have been. I know there's foreign tourists here, and we're allowing them here. Why, they ask to reciprocate for people that are vaccinated, and they could do whatever they want. The people that aren't vaccinated, the unvaccinated people, So what? Okay? No, so what? I don't know. But I know vaccinated. If you're going to travel, you should be vaccinated if you're not sure of the country. I'm not getting in a debate on whether you be vaccinated or not. That is your deal. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to pitch in. I just saw the World Trade Center, and I just saw these people working together and stuff like that to make sure people are all right. And that's about health too, pulling people out of rubble. So the vaccination ensures against the spread. But if you're hardcore against the vaccination, then I guess you have to deal with the repercussions. Sometimes you may have a compelling reason. You might have a compelling reason. But if if you're playing the odds of not getting it, then I just read a story today about a guy who's just got a double lung transplant because he had COVID, and he was one of the ones that refused to be vaccinated. And now his message is, you better get vaccinated because I got COVID and it ruined my lungs. Now I'm a double lung transplant recipient, which I think is a lot of bullshit. If you refuse a vaccine and you get sick, there's people out there that don't have COVID that need lung transplants. My father's a little old for that, but I mean, he has an ailment that's pre-COVID. But he was a little old for that, and plus the procedure was very arduous for someone his age. But he was healthy. He was healthy prior to it. The only problem was his lungs, and it was degenerative, and it's going on. So I know I just threw that in there. I apologize for that, but I find it very interesting that the things were changing, and there was such a flux going out. And I'm gauging whether I can go to Poland or not, because I actually, since I'm going for such a short time relative to my family, they're there almost 7 weeks. I would be there the last 2 weeks, which I would definitely do the show from there. And I think it's going to be no problem. Now I think it's no problem. Before it looks like they're going to buckle down and they're going to say, nope, no U.S. citizens. But they're opening up, and the tickets are selling. They're pretty low right now. They're almost at the price when I first started dating Abby 12 years ago, and I went to Poland, which would have been 2009. Yeah, they're almost in those levels. You talk about inflation and all that stuff. That's the one thing that's inflation. Even if I have to pay for my luggage back and forth, sign up for it'd be about the same. If I pay a little more, I'll feel pretty good about that. But right now, it looks good as if I'm going to be able to travel, and I'm happy about that. I wanted to talk about other things, and it was about the way people view, where right now in the United States is so divisive, politics. We see each other in such stark contrast. That's impossible to be a good American and be a supporter of either the former occupant of the Oval Office or the current occupant of the Oval Office. And whether people view the former occupant as illegitimate and the current one as illegitimate. It's so hard and fast. I used to think my feelings about George W. Bush were extreme. I did not view him as illegitimate, even though Florida didn't pan out the election review in Florida and the recount and things like that. So I do realize but watching that movie, The World Trade Center, right when that happened, when that happened, everyone had their different motivations. It said those bastards. Or other people saw this is a horrible thing, and I have to go and do my best to alleviate the suffering of the people that are still surviving. So it's interesting when you view people's reactions And I bet there's a bunch of people that were involved with the World Trade Center that may have been supporters of the previous occupant of the Oval Office and aren't supporters of this one, that were very self-sacrificed. And there's people of the current supporters of the current president, President Biden, who are the same way. And to the core, that's what unites us. Not whether we have the things that divide us, such as people worrying about immigrants. And remember, one of the stars of that World Trade Center, WTC I was going to call it, Michael Pena, is a Latino. And if we didn't have at least moderate immigration policies where people could enter and become U.S. citizens, he would not have been a member, the actor himself. Or, I mean, it's just amazing the way we view certain topics or things like that, like pro-choice, abortion, prayer in school. Does prayer in school, a supporter of prayer in school or a opponent of prayer in school, does that make you a piece of shit if you don't support prayer in school? Or a piece of shit if you make people? I mean, actually, I am against mandatory school prayer. Even a moment of silence. I would give a thing and say, hey, listen, there's a ample time right at the beginning of the school day. You can go and pray. You don't need to pray. You can go and meet right outside. Here's the area for us. If you want to go and pray, you can go and sit. You can go and pray out here. Or not pray. But don't make it part of the school day. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because not everyone's Christian. And they call it a moment of silence. When people hold hands and hold their hands and palms up, that's a Christian thing. I mean, I'm sure there's other sects that do it. But there's always leaving someone out. There's people that don't believe. They're non-believers. There is a significant amount of people in the United States that are non-believers. And they're good people. And there's a significant amount of believers. There is nobody stopping you from praying when you get up in the morning. There's no one stopping you from praying before you walk into school or when you walk out of school. You could pray your day away. Pray your day away. School is for school. It's like if you got on an escalator and every fucking time you get on an escalator, you had to stop before you walked up in front of the escalator and stop for 30 seconds and say a prayer before you got on the escalator, because everyone has to fucking stand behind you and wait for the escalator. You know, if you have to pray before you get on a fucking escalator, do it before you walk up to the escalator. Don't hold people up. You don't have to specify it. It's a beautiful thing. And if you're praying on your own, doesn't it mean a little more? It's like standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I put my hand over the heart. It means something different to me. Because I stand for the symbol, what it symbolizes. I'm not pledging allegiance to the flag. I'm pledging allegiance to the United States of America. To the Constitution. I understand the Constitution, not the fucking fucked up version where you carry the little copy of the Constitution and read it. It's like literal. It's the literalization of things like that. But it doesn't stop me because, and if someone needs to kneel during the singing of the national anthem, people call it a protest. It's a symbolism of that. Just yesterday, the President Biden signed Juneteenth, and that's, I think it's June 19th, and that's the freeing of the slaves. This is what I want to talk about, the thing. The freeing of the slaves in the United States. There was, at one time, the estimate was 3.9 million slaves in the United States in 1860. 3.9 million. And in 1865, when the 13th Amendment was passed, I think the 13th Amendment, it freed all the slaves. I mean, 3.9 million people moved from slavery to a free people. Not so free in some places with Jim Crow and things like that. You know, the reactionary people that were getting. But what is the big fucking deal with people saying that is July 4th? That is the real July 4th. The July 4th is great with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. You got to remember, though, there was a significant amount of Americans that were still enslaved at the time the Declaration of Independence was signed. And it did not apply to enslaved Americans. I'm going to call them enslaved Americans. You know, why is it a big deal? I'll tell you why it's a big deal. If you think of the thousands of years ago when the Jews left Egypt, it was now estimate. They were, you know, if you take the story literal in the Old Testament that the Jews were enslaved in Egypt, 600,000 Jews were freed and returned to Israel after getting lost for 40 years, which kind of like my trip back from Miami. But they didn't have Google Maps, which isn't always the best, but you know, there it is. 600,000. Now more than almost 7 times, or let's say more than 6.5 times the amount of people were freed from slaves today. And people say, well, they should have sent them back. Once again, that's a stupid argument. You force someone away, you forcibly imprison people, take them out. I don't care if they were enslaved, they were captured by other tribes and stuff like that and sold to white slavers and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. It was still fucking wrong. You don't justify rape that way. What are you doing raping that person? Well, that person those people are raping, so I can rape. No. So it's just like they say about drugs. If there isn't a market for it, it wouldn't have been done. They would have just killed each other. You know, if you had an enemy tribe and you say you'd capture some people and sold them to white slavers and stuff like that, and there was no market for slavery, if there was no market, we weren't the only ones at the time. I know there were former Spanish and French colonies and Dutch colonies that used slaves. But we were one of the last. And we were one of the largest, like I said, we were one of the largest slavehold civilizations that existed on the planet. Once again, let me say, the U.S. was one of the largest slaveholding societies on the planet. There's no way to wipe that out. You can say, oh, this is that thing we get all pissed off. It's a fact. It's a fact. In 1860, there were millions of Americans that were enslaved, that were freed in 1865, making it by magnitudes in time so much closer, and literal. We know it happened. We know it happened. And I guess if you're so angry, the great thing about the United States, the thing that makes us great, and makes anybody great, any story. If you ever think of the fucking greatest stories you ever heard, it was a flawed character who sees the error of their ways and rebuilds themselves into something better. The guy that wrote Amazing Grace, the guy that wrote the song Amazing Grace, was a slaver at one time. Was a white slaver. I mean, that's what he did. That was his business, was selling slaves, transporting slaves. And that song is a literal description of what happened. He saw the error of his ways. And in perpetuity, amazing grace is a description of someone that finds they found the right way. And just like the United States did in 1865. And there's always people kicking and screaming. I understand that. But eventually people see the error of their ways and stuff like that. And we have to get beyond that thing and say, when I was drinking, I justified everything I did through the lens of drinking. And that allowed me to drink. Of course I have to drink. I'm under a lot of stress. It didn't work for me. I'm not saying drinking. I've said this numerous times on the show. My drinking problem has nothing to do with your leisure drinking. If it does not affect your life and there are no repercussions for it, and even if there are repercussions for that, it's your choice. It's your choice. It's a shame if you have people that are prisoner of if you have a problem, if people are prisoners to your addiction. The people themselves that are addicted and the people have to deal with you. That's a shame. But that's one of the freedoms of that. And that's what makes America great. And then we do redress those things. And we can become greater and bigger. And we're greater, better, and bigger because we do see those things. China doesn't do it. Fucking Russia doesn't do it. Now, Germany was forced to do it, and Japan was forced to do it after World War II by the Allies. The Nuremberg trials. Japan, by MacArthur forcing a constitution on the Japanese because they were aggressors. And the U.S. was good about that for many years of saying, yeah, we were wrong. We were wrong then. Did you ever lose your cool and have to apologize? Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Jesus made mistakes. If you believe in Jesus, Jesus made mistakes. I'm sure he apologized after he flipped over a bunch of tables and the thing. I could have gone about that a little better than showing my anger. Or God flipping over the game board, the Monopoly table, which was the earth when he flooded it. Well, fuck it. You guys are all fucked up. I'm going to kill all of you. Like there were cockroaches. Oh, but the two good cockroaches. That's a little extreme. I understand that. We can be better. We should not model our behavior on the worst aspects of someone else's behavior. Even if that's the behavior of a god. If you view it, you can be better than that. I'm not saying you be better than God. Your behavior can be better. And we don't have to hate people because we disagree with them. We don't have to take away their rights to vote, though. In the inner city, there should be a proper number of polling places and access to voting. Everyone should have the same voice. We gave it to fucking corporations, for God's sakes, in the Citizens United decision, where corporations can pour unlimited amounts of money into political action committees and stuff like that. Because you know what? Corporations are people. Why can't people be people? If people can be people, they got the right to vote. And it shouldn't be overturned on the whim of, well, my guy lost, so there had to be something wrong. I know. I turned to my trip to Poland and all this stuff and Juneteenth into a thing. But you know what? American democracy is still alive. Now we have to really earn it. We have to really earn it right now. Because there's people out there that are looking to restrict that. To go back to the 3/5. 3/5, that's what in the Constitution, original drafted Constitution, that slaves were considered 3/5 of a person when counting. So slaveholding states had a they thought, an equitable number of representatives. Which I think, if you're going to make an argument, it says, so you want representatives for people that you don't consider people, right? So you're going to consider them 3/5. Well, if they're less than a human, isn't a dog less than a human? Is that 1/5? So if there's 100,000 dogs, should be considered 20,000 people? I mean, the reasoning, I would have made all those reasonings like this and say, I mean, now with the panpsychism, where everything has consciousness, check it out sometime. It's a little weird, the theory. It's about the theory that everything has consciousness, some level of consciousness, not intelligence level consciousness, but has some sort of awareness, even inanimate objects, like atoms. Well, atoms aren't really inanimate. Are atoms living? They're moving, right? And anything that moves on its own will, if you were going to tell someone if something could move on its own without any impelling of force, we consider that to be living, wouldn't we? If it just moved along. When people say, Jim, a motor moves along or a car moves along, it's not alive. Yeah, but you put a force behind it and stuff like that. Atoms move on their own accord without us doing anything. So there's suggestion that consciousness goes throughout the universe, and the universe itself could be its own consciousness. Fucking weird. You got to really, it's hard to grasp. It really is hard to grasp. And some people, they like to stay on a basic level. I'm not saying it's not settled science. I understand. But it's something to consider. When you consider the far out things, it makes you better understand the simple things. The simple metaphors on how we're all in it together. Do we want to make America great again? Yes, I want to make America great again. But I view our greatness as our power and our diversity, as America as an idea, as its freedoms, as its acceptance of others. The Great American Mountain Pot. And you know what? A lot of people can look at what's going on and be pessimistic of it. I'm going to start speaking about the power of adversity, forcing greatness upon us. Adversity forces greatness on us, and we have to be able to accept the challenge and do that. Sounds a little hokey. I understand it sounds hokey, but we can do that. For God's sakes, we did a middle of the 21st century thing, put a man on the moon in the 1960s, 69, right? Was it 69 or 70? Well, whatever. Within the decade. And another country hasn't done it yet again. 50 years later. And how many people have rockets and stuff like that? And we did it. I know some of you conspiracy theorists, you shouldn't be listening to the show. Well, maybe you should. You should expand your horizons. Because a lot of times it's easier to accept a flat earth than to try to understand science as gravity and things like that. But, I think I'm almost an hour. I am killing you guys. I do appreciate you guys for listening. If you do like the show, I know it sounds a little ham-handed, and I may do another show. But follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Keys Bartender. Follow Keys Bartender. Okay? Do it for me. Send me an email to jim@keysbartender.com. Any crazy question or worry. I appreciate everyone Danny, I appreciate you in Tennessee. I appreciate Dave, Ace, here in Key Largo, who listens to the show and wants to chat, even though I haven't mastered the technology yet. We're going to be trying some new things in next couple months, hopefully in a month or so, I'll be doing some shows from Poland. I'll have to do it. I'll have to set up and do it. I'll have to get some Wi-Fi, set up, do the thing. I'll just have them sit here with me. Maybe record some audio. Pretty fun. Well, once again, if you like the show, please share it with your friends. Like us. We're getting a lot of listeners. For my listeners in other countries where you have restrictions, things like that, stay strong. You're great. You can be great too. I don't mean be American. Be great on your own. There are great societies out there. I realize that. You being great does not forego other people being great and does not make you less and make them better. Just makes, and it's not everyone gets a fucking award thing. It's trying your best. Yes, there's people that shine at hitting a ball in a stick. Yes, that's great. Hitting a ball with a stick. They do really great. And they get paid $100 million a year. What the fuck? But greatness does not just belong to those sports heroes or movie stars or singers or dancers or whatever the fuck, painters or TikTok stars. Who gives a shit? I mean, they're doing, if you get followers and stuff like that, great. If I don't have one, great. I'm trying. You should be trying. You should be trying on whatever you like to go and do. Chase that dream down. Do it. Do it for the right reasons, too. There's a balance of sacrifice and self-care you got to put in there. You got to find it. Okay? And I thank you for listening. This really helps me. This is my thing that gets me out. I'm never anxious when I do this stuff. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate you very much. I thank you, everyone. And what I really hope is that you're all well and happy. And you can be happy. It's a decision. And maybe the next time we're going to talk this show, I think it's who was it? Canon, an Asian company, Canon, the one that used to makes copiers now, but they used to make optics and cameras and all that stuff. They instituted a thing where you cannot enter your office building without smiling. It's a facial recognition software. You have to smile in order to gain entry. I have a weird feeling either way about it, but I don't necessarily am down on it. We'll talk about that later. I thank you. Have a great day, and I'll be back. Maybe I'll be back later on today. Bye.